back to Storytime with Dave Booker. We got done with my previous book, or at least the beginning of the Harry Prentice stories from Mystery in My Pocket. I'm going to leave the other ones because I've got an idea of something to do with those. So they're being incorporated into another book, Changes in a Small Town. So I hope you'll be around for those. But today we're going to read something new, something old, something new, something borrowed, something, well, I bought it, so it's not borrowed. But it's Steve Wolf's The Legend of Creation. And I am very fortunate that he's allowing me to read this. I love this book. I have an off-key sense of humor and kind of a Monty Python type person. And this is definitely not your normal humorous book. So if you're a cycling enthusiast, this is going to be right up your street because it's the Tour de Ledge. And we're going to read the prelude, and our prologue rather, and the probably the first chapter. So this might be a little bit longer than I normally read. So let's begin. I've got my cup of tea here, and I've got more on the warmer, so we should be able to do this pretty easy. Jeremy, you idiot! The insult was harsh, and the criticism continued. That lamb-ass is in the wrong place. Jeremy examined his work for a moment before replying. No, it's not. Clive, Jeremy's comrade, narrowed his eyes and frowned, and then turned and floated towards the corner of the small wooden hut where they were working. He picked up a rolled-up blueprint and spread it open on the small table in the middle of the hut. Look, Clive said, shaking his large head from side to side as he pointed to the landmass. Jeremy studied the blueprint. After a couple of seconds, he looked out the window and gazed at the virgin earth, a couple of miles below the hut. The landmass is where it's supposed to be, he replied. Look, said Jeremy as he pointed to the spot out the window. Clive shook his head. Jeremy? Yes? Turn the blueprint around. Jeremy obeyed and spun the blueprint 180 degrees. The revelation was priceless. Jeremy, the celestial builder, was horrified. Reading the blueprint upside down was an unforgivable gaffe. See? Said Clive with a smug grin on his face. Oh, no, replied Jeremy, looking terrified, knowing he was in deep trouble. Can't we, just erase it? No, said Clive sternly. There's no time. Jeremy and Clive were planet builders from a higher order of existence. Their assignment was meant to be simple. Arrive, construct, and leave. But now, because Jeremy had cocked up with the blueprint, they had to think fast. The landmass was in the wrong hemisphere. Why can't we just blast it with a cosmic ray? Said Jeremy in desperation. Clive was stirring a cup of hot tea, which was so thick with sugar the spoon could stand up. We could, but if Harold finds out, we'll face terrible consequences. The builders hovered and stared for a moment. Okay, stuff it. Let's blast the planet with a cosmic ray and move on. Besides, why should one landmass really make a difference? Decided Clive, but with a hint of apprehension. Jeremy simply nodded. Opening the door, the two builders floated out of the hut into open space as Jeremy hiked up his ill-fitting trousers. As they pointed their fingers towards the virgin earth, a beam of light emitted from their fingertips, engulfing the brand new world. They didn't expect to see what happened next. A massive piece of smooth rectangular rock, thousands of miles wide and thousands of miles long, came hurling out of a bright spherical light, spinning violently until it came to a sudden stop. A small flash of light blinded the builders momentarily, and something moved. Good afternoon, gentlemen, said a harsh female voice. The builders looked a little lost for a moment as they stared at the figure in front of them. It looked different somehow. It was a lot smaller than them, and it wore a long blue frilly dress with a white penny in the front. On its head was a checkered piece of material that held its short golden and silver hair in place. Who are you? Said Clive as the figure slowly glided towards the builders, waving a blue sparkling duster. My dears, I am Mother Earth, Mother Nature, replied the figure. Mother what? They said in unison. Confusion hung in the air like a bad smell as the builders stared at one another. Why do you look like that? Demanded Jeremy, scratching his head. The elderly lady looked down at her dress. Oh my, you don't get out much, do you? I am a woman. A what? They cried. A woman, she sighed. You should know you created me. The two builders held together and began speaking in a low whisper. How does this happen? What is a woman? Said Jeremy. I have no idea. Well, what should we do? Clive turned and stared at the virgin earth. It's the planet. Excuse me? Said Jeremy. It's the planet that has somehow created that, replied Clive. Mother Nature scowled and coughed angrily. That, my dear, is a she. The builders looked at one another and appeared to come to a very quick decision. We're leaving now. Our holiday plan is already 1,000 years behind schedule. You are now in charge, said Clive as they wrapped up their tools and grabbed their bags. Goodbye and good luck with whatever it is you are going to do on that lead-shaped thing down there. In a flash, the builders vanished into the cosmos. Tut-tutting, Mother Nature cleared away a sandwich wrapper and an apple core from under the table as the temporary mess room slowly began to fade away. The new lady of the ledge then drifted out of the wooden hut and descended towards the long, smooth, rectangular slab of rock, landed in the center, and surveyed her new home. The ledge was deserted. Not a single feature existed, and it was as smooth as a waxed table. Mother Nature grinned, and with a spontaneous burst of energy and ideas, she began to shape the ledge, and, more importantly, she began to shape the earth. The first thing Mother Nature did was create a mountain in the middle of what was she now called the ledge of creation, a rectangular piece of rock. Near the top of the mountain, which she named Mother Mountain, on a huge open plain, she created a modest cottage with a small garden surrounded by a small white picket fence. The cottage was situated 50 meters above the plain in its own grounds. Of course, no mountain was complete without an obligatory ring of clouds cloaking the summit. The mother of the ledge then decided to populate the earth. She could have simply added plants, animals, and people to this new planet, but she wanted the earth to evolve. Evolution was the buzzword, so she planted the seeds and let nature take its course. Well, thousands of years passed, and watching with the fascination of a child, the mother of the ledge tutted and groaned as she witnessed evolution unfolding. She soon became bored with the dinosaurs roaming around, eating one another, and basically doing nothing of interest. So she sent in an asteroid and then implemented an ice age that finished them off. Another thousands of years later, the ice thawed, revealing an impressive landscape of deeply etched valleys and lofty mountains. Forests bloomed, plants flourished, insects, birds, and all kinds of animals evolved and grew. And then a funny, upright mammal appeared. Mother Nature was intrigued. After thousands of years of mindless animals tearing each other apart, this was the first time she had seen anything that resembled herself. Quickly, she got to work and built a cave next to her mountain and created her very first administrator, Ugg. Ugg's job was to live in the cave, discover things, and dream up ideas passed down, using a psychic link to selected cavemen on Earth. This was the role of an administrator of the ledge. They helped with evolution. Mother Nature believed they would speed up progression and lead to more interesting times. Besides, she was very busy controlling the 4 violent winds as well as volcanoes. Ugg spent most of his time sitting in his cave, usually naked, until he discovered animal fur. The lady of the ledge needed him to experience life like the cavemen on Earth. And one day Ugg realized that he was cold, very cold. This thought generated a pulse on the ledge of creation, and an image flashed in front of him. A strange orange glow that danced in his eyes. As a strange fiery object filled his thoughts, a bolt of lightning struck the tree opposite the cave, and a branch, flaming with fire, fell to the base of the tree. Ugg wandered out of his cave and picked up the burning branch, but from the wrong end. Quickly dropping it, he ran back into his cave, screaming. After a few moments, once the burning had subsided, he dragged the branch into the cave, using the non-burning end this time, and made a monumental discovery. Heat. The hot flames emanating from the branch flickered brightly within his cave, and Ugg greedily absorbed the warmth. When the heat began to die down and the branch turned to ash, he began to feel cold again. Ugg tried all kinds of methods to regenerate the heat, such as standing on the branch and kicking it, but to no avail. As a second bolt of lightning struck the tree, another burning branch fell to the ground, and the caveman on the ledge learned something vital. Scurrying out of his cave, he started to gather up as many branches as he could from the nearby trees, and using the burning branch, he ignited the neatly stacked pile of wood and stood back. The heat was overwhelming. Looking down from a cloud high up in the sky, his boss smiled. Soon one thing led to another, and Ugg began to evolve, inventing hunting tools, cooking, and then the wheel. And each time he discovered something new, he psychically connected with several cavemen and cave women down on Earth, and his discoveries appeared to them in their dreams. Ugg, it turned out, was the brains of the cavemen of the Earth. Many years later, Mother Nature decided to introduce three companions to Ugg, and Mother Nature decided to introduce three companions to Ugg and Grim. Arg and Snort appeared one night to Ugg's utter amazement. Grim and Arg were different. They had wobbly bits. Snort was just like Ugg, big and smelly. As thousands of more years passed by, Mother Nature watched her administrators grow and evolve into more civilized people. They invented a language and began to communicate with speech instead of a club and a grunt. They left behind their caves in favor of houses with running water, which they built from bricks, and the area around Ugg's former cave began to look more like a small town. Soon, many more administrators were milling around, carrying out the work of Mother Nature, busily delivering thoughts and ideas to the chosen few. Many more centuries passed by until one day the lady of the ledge looked down upon the earth, and she was happy with what she saw. In fact, the administrators had reached a point where she felt they needed to slow down. The earth had reached equilibrium, and it was time to slow down evolution and start to control the population. So Mother Nature decided it was time to let the administrators have a little downtime. And for the first time since the beginning of their existence, they were allowed to experience leisure time. Ugg, who was known as Zodiac, Grim, who had become Constella, Arg, who had become Starlet, and Snort, whose name was Proton, experimented with all kinds of activities, and soon they settled upon a pastime they all enjoyed: cycling. It was fun. It gave them plenty of opportunity for fresh air and lots of exercise. Mother Nature decided that the highways administrators should build roads around the ledge, and once they had been completed, there were countless delays involving weekend payments, roadworks on newly built highways, and a general aim of inconveniencing road users for as long as possible. The four administrators spent many happy years cycling the routes. It all started at a leisurely pace, but soon it became competitive. In the center of the ledge, at the base of Mother Mountain, Mother City, the capital of the ledge, was bustling with activity. At the administrator's headquarters in the center of the city, Administrator General Buck Swad was staring out of the window from his favored vantage point, watching the world below. He had long, thin hair that dropped to his shoulders and a short, tidy beard. He wore a suit pressed by the local cleaners that appeared to sparkle. Short and angry, he was a man who represented the height-restricted people down on Earth. But Swad was a no-nonsense, non-humorous administrator who had shined in his early days, impressing Mother Nature so much that she promoted him to her second-in-command. His plush office was situated on the top floor of the building that stood proudly in front of Mother Mountain, thus allowing him the best vantage points in Mother City. Down below, he caught sight of a hover car and sighed. It'll never catch on. His daydream was interrupted abruptly by a knock at the door. Come, said Buck, retreating behind his desk. The door slid open and the slightly built figure of Zodiac Pedalsworth entered the room. He was wearing strange clothes that Buck had never seen before. Zodiac, please, be seated. Zodiac Pedalsworth, formerly Ugg and the first administrator, strode into the room and sat down. Buck stared at him for a short while. Even though Buck was his superior, Zodiac was the oldest administrator on the ledge, and he commanded a large amount of respect, a knack that set in Buckswad's throat like a razor blade. Buckswad was only 3,886 years old. Zodiac was so old he had lost count. Mother Nature had offered the top position to Zodiac, but he had declined the promotion as it would have interfered with his cycling. Narrowing his eyes, Bucks examined the administrator sitting in front of him. Zodiac counted the stare and then said cheerfully, nice weather today, isn't it? Is it really? Replied Buck sarcastically, and then cocking his head, he said, what exactly are you wearing? Zodiac grinned. It's Lycra. It's great for cycling. I passed it on years ago, and it's been a massive hit down on Earth. As he spoke, he grabbed a piece of the magical material and let it slap back against his thigh. It's a little tight, isn't it? Said Bucks in amazement. Well, that's the whole idea. You see, it helps with drag. Bucks, who had never understood the concept of any form of exercise unless it involved sitting at his desk and drinking coffee, blinked with astonishment and then collected himself. Yeah, fascinating. Zodiac looked around the office, disapproving of the expensive decor on display. Why do you want to see me? Buck straightened up. Mother Nature is ready to move forward with the next level of evolution. She wants to move towards integration. Excuse me? Said Zodiac. She wants me to organize an event that will allow the humans on Earth to come here and take part. The other cocked his head sideways. Why? Buck's feeling in charge of the situation smelled. As I said, integration. She's ready for a select few to visit the ledge. Even though Zodiac was the first ever administrator, sometimes his brain failed to keep up, dropping back into Ugg mode. But for what reason? Who are we to question the will of the mother? I need you to come up with a plan that involves cycling. As you see, Mother Nature's a big fan of cycling, said Bucks calmly as he sat back in his wicker chair. Zodiac merely nodded as he already knew this. He had seen Mother Nature on several occasions watching cycling races on the grand invention known as a television. What about a race around the ledge? I know we could call it the Ledge Classic, said Zodiac. His enthusiasm building. Leaning forward, Bucks listened with intrigue as Zodiac conjured up all kinds of different ideas until he finally settled on one. Got it, he cried. The Ledge Classic, Tour de Ledge, a 500-mile bike race to be completed in 5 stages around the ledge, starting and finishing here. Bucks raised an eyebrow. What? In my office? No, I mean at the top of the Mother Mountain. We could start and finish there. Lex was starting to tire with ideas already. Zodiac, he sighed, just make it happen. You have a week to organize it. Okay, hold on one second. Let me check this. That was the prologue. Now we're getting into chapter 1. I just want to see. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do prologue in chapter 1, and then we'll do chapters 2 and 3 probably within the next few days. Give me a minute. My throat dries out real quick. All right. We're ready to begin chapter 1, The Invitation. In the depths of the night, 40-year-old financial advisor Derek Dackerson woke up realizing he desperately needed the toilet. Slowly he slid out of his bed and pointed his well-toned body towards the bedroom door. An uninvited spider snarled at him as Derek unwittingly tore into a fresh web. The hairy arachnid had just finished stringing across the door. Dropping to the floor, the spider waved a leg angrily at Derek and scuttled off. Derek shrugged and lightly tiptoed to the bathroom to answer the call of nature. Deciding against flushing, not wanting to wake his pregnant fiancée, he washed his hands, dried them on the towel, and looked into the mirror to pose. Derek froze in terror. In the mirror, a second face looked back at him over his shoulder. Derek felt the full force of a refrigeration unit traveling up his spine, freezing him rigid. The hairs on the back of his neck stood to attention like rows of soldiers as he heard his name. Derek Dackerson? Derek let out a whimper as he tried to form a word. Derek Dackerson, you need not be alarmed. Regaining control of his senses, Derek grabbed his toothbrush, spun around on his heels, and found himself staring straight into the eyes of Zodiac Pedalsworth. How'd you get into my house? He demanded in one long word, waving his toothbrush at the intruder. Zodiac smiled. Derek Dackerson, I am not here to hurt you. I bring you a message from Mother Nature. We have been watching you for a long time. Mother who? Watching me? Mother Nature, I'm here to ask that you assemble your cycling team. Now, what do you call it? Yes, the team Cogs and Clocks. Confusion overwhelmed Derek. Lowering his toothbrush, he could now see that the figure in front of him was not entirely solid. It shimmered. Are you a ghost? Did I just die? Zodiac looked at Derek sympathetically. No, Derek, I am not a ghost, and you are very much alive. Derek Dickerson sat down heavily on the side of the bath and rubbed his bloodshot eyes. What do you want with Team Cogs and Clocks? Zodiac shivered and floated towards the very much alive Derek. We want you to race, he replied as he placed a warm finger on Derek's forehead, sending him quickly towards the bathroom floor into a deep, beautiful sleep. The next morning, Derek opened his eyes to a pair of feet with brightly painted toenails. He worked his way up towards the very bemused face of his fiancée, Hetty. What are you doing on the bathroom floor? She asked. Derek sat up and looked at his fiancée with a confused look, then leapt up and ran down the stairs, dashing from room to room looking for any sign of a break-in. Derek, said Hetty, what's going on? Derek turned towards his fiancée. I had a bad dream, I think. What time is it? And then he spotted it, a golden envelope lying on the floor in the middle of the room. 8 o'clock, replied Hetty. What's that? Derek picked up the golden envelope and turned it over in his hands. On the back were written 2 letters. M.N. M.N., said Hetty. What does that mean? Mother Nature, muttered Derek as he opened the envelope. As he did so, a rainbow of color poured from the envelope, lighting up the room. As a spectrum of color permeated the room, a feeling of calm descended upon them both. And most importantly, a feeling of trust was instilled within them. Inside the envelope there was a gold-braided note with instructions. Derek was filled with hope after such a long string of bad luck. He knew what he had to do. He picked up his old brick mobile phone, it was all he could afford at present, and dialed. Later that evening, inside the Crank and Crack cycling pub, Team Cogs and Clocks assembled, having received instructions to meet Derek there. Sitting around a long table, the group of would-be professional cyclists chatted amongst themselves. "So what do you think this is all about?" asked a voice belonging to a tall, lanky man. "I don't know, but it sounded urgent," asked a voice belonging to replied another voice. "Tell you what, though, I have not heard from him this agitated for quite a while. Well, not since the financial crash. When all those pensioners chased him down the high street with their umbrellas," coughed a third voice. "He had to go into hiding for a month while all those funds simply disappeared." There was a collective laugh as they all recalled the incident. Derek Dickerson was actually a very good financial advisor, but it all had gone a little pear-shaped after the Champagne disaster. He was once a high-flying, top-of-his-tree advisor to the very wealthy, and he had amassed an impressive portfolio of properties. Many expensive cars, his Audi being among his favorite, a collection of houses, and a batch of yellow chicks in a little hen house. He was a city slipper. Then one night someone knocked over a bottle of champagne at a party, and it leaked onto his famous Mathematica calculator. The very next day, on learning about the impending financial crash, Derek made a few calculations on his now very drunk calculator, which spewed out sporadic numbers. In a rush to move funds around, Derek used the dodgy calculations, and, well, the rest is history. No more than a few days later, Derek lost all his houses, his cars, his chicks, and his head office. However, over time, Derek slowly managed to rebuild a small part of his business. It was a long, tough road back. He was still a long way off from where he wanted to be. The small terraced house and the clapped-out blue Yugo 45 were witness to that fact. The door creaked as Derek entered the pub, and the chill of the late November air stole in like an uninvited guest at a wedding. He quickly slammed the door shut and looked around. The Crank and Bracket Cycling Club was busy for a Wednesday night. He noted the yellow Tour de France bike hanging over the fireplace and the posters of Alpe d'Huez and other famous climbs on the walls. He caught a glimpse of Barry Bianchi, which wasn't hard, as he towered over him at 6 feet 8 inches. Even sitting down, he looked like he was still standing. His thin 43-year-old frame and thinning thatch dominated the table. Next to him sat Bernard Bianchi, no relation, the youngest member of Team Cogs and Clocks. He was wearing a baseball cap back to front and was busy adjusting his latest Barnett Diablo catapult. Sitting directly adjacent, collision, a trained chef, and Austin Potter, the man with an internal GPS, were talking between themselves. Stanley Cogsworth, the team's mechanic, was sitting at the end of the table on a cushion. A cycling god had zapped his bottom, leaving him with the world's biggest zit, and he couldn't sit for long. Derek noted an empty chair. "Evening all, where's Reginald?" "It's full moon," said Barry. "Oh." Reginald Wolfe believed he was a werewolf. After rolling off his bike and smashing into a car one wet afternoon while training for a triathlon, he woke from the fog of concussion in the full belief that he was now a creature of the night. An unfortunate side effect of his condition meant that whenever there was a full moon, he would stalk sheep on the moors or hunt chickens, much frowned upon by Derek. The evening usually ended with Reg wearing nothing more than a pair of old underpants, a thick shaggy rug, and a scary wolf mask, becoming a guest of the local constabulary. And it was no different tonight. The thin blue line had just picked him up, and he was currently ensconced at the police station across the road from the pub. The local police were becoming accustomed to his eccentric behavior. They thought he was harmless, as he never really endangered anyone or anything. And when the call came in that a man wearing a wolf mask was terrorizing sheep on the moor, the police were happy to accept the call. It was an easy call out and offered them a brief respite. After being cautioned at the station, Reg was once more let loose into the night. The weather had turned for the worse that evening, and the rain streamed sideways along the road. Fueled by a strong wind that had come from nowhere, Reg cursed as the wind blew rain up his trouser leg as he dashed across the road, stepping around puddles and dodging the splash of passing cars. Finally making it to the door of the Crank and Bracket, he pushed it open. "Oh!" he howled as he entered the establishment. Spotting Team Cogs and Clocks, he trotted over, stopping briefly to admire the blown-up picture of Mont Blanc hanging over the fireplace, and then he smiled when he glimpsed the piece of burnt toast he had smuggled in and pushed behind a vase on the mantelpiece. It was a social experiment to see how long it would take for somebody to notice it. It had now been 4 months. "Evening," said Reg. "Evening, Mr. Wolf," replied Derek. "Good hunting?" Reg placed himself next to Barry on a long settee fixed against the wall. "Not really. Thought I was about to catch chicken when I was stopped in my tracks by a double-barreled shotgun." "Really?" Derek started to snicker. He was the king of crap one-liners. "Shoot away, then. What happened?" "The farmer thought I was a fox, and he almost blew my face off," said Reg calmly. Derek's face dropped at the thought of such a hideous act. "Blimey, Reg, you really need to be careful. What would have happened if he had pulled the trigger?" Reg appeared unfazed by his near-death experience. "Well, guess I'd be dead now," he replied as he helped himself to a crisp from a packet on the table. "Yeah, and then we could have had wolf pie," said Collinson with a sly grin. Derek shook his head in amazement and stared at Reg munching on the cheese and onion crisps. Reginald Wolf was short, lean, and over 40. He had very little hair on his head, and amazingly, he had a wife and 2 beautiful little wolf cubs. Mrs. Wolf had long ago decided he was a little odd and often random, which, luckily for Reg, she found captivating, even though she would never let on to Reg that she did. "Now then," said Derek firmly, getting his head back into the present. "Let's get down to business. What did one plate say to the other?" It was a collective sigh as everyone stared at each other. Even though Derek had lost everything, his humor was still intact. Team Cogs and Clocks leaned in. "Lunch is on me," he guffawed, leaning back and wiping tears from his eyes. Once he had pulled himself together, Derek dropped into a more serious tone. "I came across a cycle race that I believe you'll find very interesting." "What kind of race?" asked Colin, chewing on a breadstick. Derek's face twisted as he deliberated what to say. It's a race with a difference." "Sounds a little ominous," said Austin. Derek nodding in agreement and thought about the visitation, considering whether he should tell them or not. He concluded very quickly, thinking, "Nah, I'm not telling them yet. After all, what about the golden envelope? What would they make of that?" He smiled at Austin Potter, the oldest member of Team Cogs and Clocks, was nudging the dreaded 50. Austin was the team's navigator. He liked the old-fashioned way of doing things. But on a recent training mission in Mallorca, where he had half a ton of math stuffed into his back pocket, the team had still managed to get lost. The senior rider reluctantly borrowed a satellite navigation system and clamped it to his bike. But he found the process of staring at the bloody thing distracting. A few days later, while on a long ride, Austin was struggling to read the small screen in the glaring sunlight. Unfortunately, he was hurtling down a steep descent at the time, and in a lapse of concentration, he forgot about an impending sharp right-hand bend. The unlucky Austin flew off a cliff and landed in the sea. The satellite navigation system reacted badly to the salty seawater and began to short-circuit. The surrounding liquid became bound as bubbles crashed over Austin's head and the GPS device exploded, sending pieces everywhere. A tiny fragment from the GPS receiving unit penetrated Austin's ear and lodged deep in his head, fusing onto his skull. When Austin was finally rescued after his so-called teammates had stopped laughing, and he had fully recovered, he was left with a unique ability of knowing exactly where he was and where he was going. He had become a human navigation device, Displaying unnatural abilities, Austin would read a map, calculate the route, and then set off, never ever getting lost. His sense of direction was now legendary. Derek slurped his beer and smiled to himself. Austin was so right. Ominous was the word. Colin swallowed the remains of a pork pie he had hoarded and muttered, "So what do we have to do to enter?" Derek looked a little worried, but simply said, "We have to meet at the cliffs of Flamborough Head in 2 days." Bear was first to speak. "Why Flamborough Head?" "Barry, my lakey beepole of a friend," said Derek. "I honestly have no idea." So that's the prologue at Chapter 1. Chapter 2 and 3 will be read next. That's only about less than 20 pages. We'll see how far we can go. And I hope you're enjoying this. This is The Legend Creation by Steve Wolf. It is available on Amazon, and I'm sure there's plenty of other places it's available too. But I do know it's on Amazon. That's where I got my copy. So, very short chapters, but a lot in them. So I hope you'll get a copy. I am going to stop for right now. We'll do chapters 3 and 4, and we'll see how far Steve lets me go on this. And if you like it, tell your friends. Have them tune in for the next chapters. And we'll see you on the next reading. Appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you on the next reading. Have a good day and be good. Bye.